Hey guys, welcome back to More Than a Mortgage. I'm super excited for today's conversation. For those of you who may not know, this podcast exists to tell the stories of folks in our industry. I'm your host, Gavin Sessions, and today I'm really looking forward to having a conversation with Elliot Hoyte. He's been a guy that has been on my list of people that I've been looking forward to having on the show. He's got a super unique story. Many people have probably already heard of him, and you might already know some of his story, but we're excited to have him share that with us today. So Elliot, appreciate you being here today, man. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me on, Gavin. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Hey, so we were just chatting a minute ago. Your day's been good so far. No office time quite yet.
Yeah.
One of the things I always like to ask people just to kind of get us kicked off is, if you weren't working today, and I guess you weren't working today kind of before, but this is kind of what we get to do for work. It's one of the most fun things I get to do. What would you spend your time doing? What would you choose to do if you had a day that involved no work?
Anyone that knows me would say I would just say work. So I haven't got an answer for you, dude. That's all I know. If I'm not working on work, to an extent, I get some level of anxiety, I think. But if I wasn't truly doing it, I think going on a hike with my wife and my dog is always a good time, or a walk.
Nice.
Small thing, but it's the small things that I enjoy.
Just here in the foothills?
Yeah, just go off on the foothills. Maybe take a little sandwich, grab a picnic, enjoy being outdoors. That's the most I can think of. That's the longest I can go before I have to think about, okay, well, what am I working on next?
Yeah. When was the last time you took a hike?
A hike.
Yeah.
It's probably been about 2 months since I took a hike, but I mean, obviously go on a walk on a regular basis. Good. But a hike's been a couple months.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, hey, we really appreciate you being here today. You're very well scripted at telling your story, I know, but there's a lot of us that don't know your story very well, right? So let me just kick it off by saying you are a guy with a British accent. That is not common for our area, right?
No, let alone a brown one as well. Normally they think you're white,
Yeah. Obviously, real estate agent and very successful one at that, as well as an Instagram personality and creator for sure. But you didn't just get to where you are without a great story, right? And so what we want to do here on this space generally is we want to give honor to your story. We want to kind of hear, how did you get to Boise, Idaho? And how did you get to where you are today? So if you want to take us back in time, you can go back as far as you like, but we would love to kind of hear from you. So how did it start?
Yeah, so I grew up in a small town called Tavistock in England. It's a town of about 10,000 people, or at least it was at the time, and it's grown a lot. I mean, population growth has been a thing in general, and it doesn't escape even small towns in the middle of England. So I think it's like almost 20,000 now. It's almost doubled in size since I lived there. But grew up in a small town called Tavistock. Grew up a very unremarkable and safe childhood, which is a good thing, I think, for the most part. Didn't grow up with riches, didn't grow up poor, grew up with what we needed, but not everything you always wanted, which is pretty run of the mill, I think, for the most part. And grew up playing sports. I mean, that was the thing I did outside of school. I was always, I would have said intelligent, but not always the most like academic in that I loved school. Got great grades for the most part, but always loved sports, and that was kind of my life really from a young age. So I grew up playing rugby. Started playing rugby from the age of 4. I think I was like a year or two too young technically to play, but I was bigger than most of the kids my age. So my mum just kind of threw me in the corner with these kids at the rugby club and said, go run off some energy, because I was a little bit wild. Just grew up playing rugby most of my life. A little bit of soccer as well, but I got too big for soccer. So at 13, I had to kind of nip that one and say, okay, time to kind of focus just on rugby and a little bit of basketball as well.
Rugby's growing in the United States, would you say?
From the most part. I'm really not that involved with it, but the MLR, the Major League Rugby, I know that they had some traction. I think there's a couple of teams that fell off, and then they kind of have reestablished, but I think it's growing in the States, from what I understand, at least.
Definitely big where you grew up, though?
Yeah, it's the second biggest sport after soccer.
Okay.
It's kind of probably what I'd assume that the NBA is to the NFL in a way, if that makes sense.
Sure,
makes sense. A fair enough comparison, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, grew up playing rugby. And then tried my hand at football, like American football, at the age of 16. So I was very late to the game. Most kids in America grow up playing from a very young age. At least if you're not playing flag at 5, you're playing like middle school maybe at least, or even elementary school football. So I started playing football at 16. And I always wanted to play college football. I didn't really know how I was going to do it, but I always wanted to, especially being in England.
What was the exposure? What was the interest? Where did it come from?
My dad actually played back in the 80s and the early 90s. So he played college football for 4 years.
Okay.
And then he played in the first year of what was called the World League, which also was then the NFL Europe, which has since disbanded. Okay. So that was my background. I was too young to really remember him playing. but was around for the kind of the last couple of years that he did play. But that was my family background in it.
Sure.
And I bugged my dad for years. I'm like, I want to really play football.
So your dad lived in the U.S. and played college football?
Yeah, he did. He's English, but moved out to play 2 years at junior college, then 2 years at a four-year college.
Okay.
And then moved back to the UK and ended up playing for the London Monarchs, which were the first NFL Europe team for England, essentially.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my
Where did he
background.
play college football?
He played at Akron, University of Akron.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was actually their first year in FBS football, I think, if I remember correctly, back in 1988, I think it was.
All right.
Way back in the day. So that was my background, at least. That was kind of like, I knew about football, but it wasn't really a part of the day-to-day. All I had was old books and pictures of my dad playing, because back in the 90s, you didn't have social media and the internet the same way it is today, so I couldn't really look things up. So all I had was memories of what my dad did and him sharing things, but I always had an idea I wanted to play football.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously played rugby for that long period of time. Started playing football at the age of 16, and just rewinding very slightly, when I was about, I think I was 12 or 13, this is when I was playing rugby, a American like high school team came over to my town to tour the area to play on kind of like a 2-3 week kind of vacation type tour playing.
A
deal.
rugby team or
Rugby
American
team.
football?
Rugby team.
American rugby
Yeah,
team. Okay.
Yeah, US high school rugby team came over, or at least high school age, and they played a bunch of teams in the area. And my dad was asked by my youth coach at the time to come and help guest coach this American team that was touring, because they were still they were new to the game, and they're like, well, we need coaches. So my dad helped coach out, and I kind of actually went along just to help demonstrate drills, because although I was younger, I've been playing rugby my whole life, and these guys were still kind of learning what to do. So I was like, all right, great, this will be fun. And I befriended a guy that was on the team there. His name was Chase. And Chase was being actually recruited by a bunch of, back then, Pac-10 schools at the time for football. And he played rugby as well. And hung out with him, and I thought it was really cool because he was getting recruited by all different types of teams. I think Cal, I don't know if USC at the time, a bunch of teams anyway.
So
Pac-10.
Chase was on the American rugby team.
He was on the American rugby team
that
was visiting, and I hung out with him while he was there, because it's always cool to hang out with an actual American football player. Lost contact with him for years. Ended up fast forward playing football for my local club team at the age of 16. And when I say local, I had to travel 2 hours up the freeway each way just to play. There was no actual like close team. So I fast forward to that time I start playing. My dad gets ESPN, and I'm watching college football, and I turn on a Boise State football game, and Chase, who had heard met many years before, was playing football for Boise State.
Really?
I was like, no way, that's Chase Baker, who I hung out with years ago.
Did you recognize his face or his last name?
Face, full name. I mean, the name was a giveaway to start with.
Yeah.
And then I was like, hang on a second. And then saw him on the sideline. I was like, no, that's the Chase that I knew. So reached out to him through Facebook and asked him if he remembered me. He said, yeah, of course I remember you. And I said, hey, I just started playing football, funnily enough. He said, oh, great, send your film out. So I did. And then we played club football back home. It's not very organized, but I was pretty good considering. And he actually shared my film with the coaches at Boise State, and they invited me out to summer camp that following year, and they offered me a scholarship on the second day of camp. So it was a very chance connection, but that's how I ended up in Boise, was Boise State football and through Chase, essentially. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
All right, so you get here, you participate in a week's worth of camps or so. Second day, they offer you a scholarship.
Yeah.
Who offered you that scholarship?
Coach Pete. Coach Pete at the time, Coach Peterson.
That's
yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So that was his. I had him for 2 years. My freshman year, and then my redshirt freshman year. So yeah, he was the guy that offered me the scholarship.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good dude, right?
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, great guy. We definitely missed him when he left. Harson did a great job when he came in and picked up and kind of took the momentum. But yeah, definitely a unique human being, unique human being for sure.
Chris Peterson, obviously, name goes, you wouldn't have to talk about his resume. A great dude for sure. Local legend here. Yeah. I'm grateful he went to Washington after.
Yeah, but
there's another story there, but he obviously great at building foundations, right? Because I looked it up today. You guys won a Fiesta Bowl in his first year being gone. Yeah,
we did. Yeah, we were 2014, the very first year. So, I mean, you can't discredit Coach Harson at all, because obviously, you have to get through the whole season. You have to work, there's a lot you have to do. But that being said, obviously the vast underpinnings of that team were Coach Peterson recruited guys. So there's definitely some crossover there. And yeah, there's definitely a legacy piece there. And Coach Pete's, obviously he's retired now, but he's an analyst. That's kind of, I don't know how well necessarily his style maybe would work today in today's NIL kind of world, because Coach Pete built teams very much around like the collective, right? It was very much like the teamwork, like not having any individuals per se. Obviously, you got guys that have personalities, but it was about, you know, no one person is greater than the team. And now in the NIL era, it's all about who's the best guy, who's got the most notoriety, who's making the most amount of money. And I don't know how that would necessarily fit. Not he could do anything he set his mind to, I'm sure, but whether it would fit his style or not, I don't know. It's a different game now, you know.
Very, very different. There's a lot of head coaches that are legends that are no longer actively coaching, and you know, you wonder like an Urban Meyer, a Saban, or a Chris Peterson, or you know, how would they do in the NIL era is the question. And I'm sure they, to your point, they do great.
They do great, but I think there's a certain point where you make enough money. If you're not motivated by money anymore, which a lot of them aren't necessarily, you're motivated by cause or a vision. If that vision or cause doesn't fundamentally doesn't align with morally how you think things should be done, it's not worth doing. I've learned that in business too. Like sometimes just because you could do it doesn't mean it will fulfill you. So I think, I don't think they necessarily get the same fulfillment doing things the way that they're done today compared to how they're used to doing things.
For sure.
I can't speak on their behalf, but just my hypothesis, you know.
Yeah, I think it's really well said, for sure. Before we get out of college football era, you got to play college football. You're one of a very small percentage of people that get to do that, right? I mean, what a cool story. College football is my favorite sport. I mean, bar none. If I could only be a football fan on one day of the week, it'd be Saturday. No question. And such a cool thing to end up, you know, having an opportunity to come from a foreign country and be able to play, and especially to be able to play here in this town. Boise State football is a big deal here for sure, and great experience for you, I'm sure, overall. What are your fondest memories of it?
It's kind of cliche when I say this, but the fondest memories aren't even necessarily playing. Like playing is a given. I think that's fun, but a lot of it's just the time you spend with your teammates. More than anything, like those friendships you build and those memories, like, you know, the off the field stuff, or like even the stuff that sucked. Like, you know, two-a-days, because they still had two-a-days back in the day when I played, at least, you know, for the first few years. Like going through those experiences, those joint experiences, those are the things that build like kind of the foundation. Those are things you look back at and remember. And a lot of the time they'd have guys come in to speak to us who are like old heads, right? Like older guys that played back in the day. And they always like, you know, don't take this for granted, you know, so-and-so goes really, really quick. And you're like, yeah, whatever. I look back now and it's been 10 years this year. And I think I did take it for granted sometimes. Like the last couple of years, I'm very much at peace with my football journey and where it went and what I achieved. But the last couple of years in particular, I really have realized that as life has gotten significantly more serious and the stakes are higher as you become like a real man, like an adult, you realize like, oh, that was a really good time. And you don't realize it until it's too late. I think that's part of that nostalgia feeling we get at any juncture in our life. You look back at times when you were like 4 years old or 5 or 15 or 12, or you hear music or you smell smells and you hear sounds. And you look back and it reminds you, and you realize actually it wasn't as bad as I thought. It was actually kind of a good time. So the last couple of years in particular, I felt a lot more nostalgic about it. Not emotional in like a negative way, but more like, wow, that was actually a really fun time. Like even though there's times it sucked, there's some things that I would trade that I have to deal with today that I didn't have to deal with back then. But also vice versa. I mean, I'm not having to stuff my face with 7,000 calories a day to keep my weight up and run around in 100-degree heat with a helmet on. That's not always the most fun. So there's trade-offs, you know.
For sure, always trade-offs. I think it's well said. I mean, if it's not college football, it's something else, right? We all experience seasons of things in life that at the time we take for granted and don't realize how great it is, right? Yeah. And then as you grow and mature and get more responsibility, then it's like, oh, crap. I have to care about things now that I didn't even know were something that I had to care about when I was, you know, a college kid or when I was a teenager or whatever that was.
So. Yeah. I had no clue, and you don't realize until it's kind of past sometimes. So I try and I'm preaching my own advice I need to take, but I try my best to live in the moment when I can. I try and enjoy the moment and the things you have, because life changes quite quickly.
Yep, for sure. You still close to the program? Do you go back to a lot of games? Or?
Yeah. I've only missed in person. I think I've only missed one in-person game in the last 10 years. Actually, I haven't missed a game. The only game I missed was the first one at my old job. I wasn't able to be there for that game. That's the first and only one I miss. But I'm still involved in the program where I can be. There's actually a guy on the team from the UK who was he was with the NFL Academy in the UK. His coach was actually one of my old teammates back in the day. So his name's Lopez, and I get to hang out with him maybe a couple times a month or every other month, depending on what his schedule's like. Yeah. So I'm still involved to an extent, not on a daily or weekly basis, of course, but I still kind of keep my fingers on the pulse and do what I can. But it's very different now. It's changed a lot even since I've been there. I mean, it makes sense. It's been 10 years, I guess, but there's a lot of innovation happening. There's far more resources than I had. So I'm happy for those guys because they get to experience something I didn't get to experience. But also there's that old head side of me. It's kind of like, you don't understand how good you have it, you know?
That's true. And they won't, right? They won't understand it until fast forward 5 to 10 years later.
Yeah. And they don't know the old school.
Right.
Like when I first got there, we were in the old VC, the Varsity Center, and we had wooden beat up like lockers. We didn't have, it wasn't until my second year, heading into my third year, that they had the new facility built. So those guys don't know what it's like. Though the old facility we had, we shared, I think, like 15 showers between 100 and something guys. And if you flushed one of the toilets, it would scold you. that was Boise State football back in the day, believe it or not. Yeah.
We sound like old guys. You don't know how good you have it.
Yeah, I know. It's I'm starting to not recognize myself anymore.
That's funny. Well, also unique in that you played for the one school that you were probably ever a fan of, correct?
Yeah.
Because growing up in the UK, you probably didn't pay attention to American college football much, did you?
I got one guilty admission. USC. When I first got into college football, it was USC's heyday from the Reggie Bush era, Matt Leinart. I was a kid. I was like 10, 11 years old, I think.
Yep.
That was kind of I would say that was probably the first love, but it also wasn't realistic necessarily. A kid from England going to
You caught
USC.
those games on ESPN then, I'm guessing?
Yeah, caught some of the games on ESPN, but the real team that I kind of like felt the affinity to was Boise State because they were always the underdog. I knew I was kind of an underdog, really.
Had you had the opportunity to play for USC, you think you would have?
I think young me would have. I think if I had compared the two, probably. But I'm glad I didn't because I mean everything works out the way it works out for a reason, and yeah, I wouldn't be who I am without that experience. Boise State football, although it's not anything, there's days I don't even think, I forget I played football. Like it doesn't even, it just escapes me entirely. However, Boise State football was fundamentally the most important thing I went through in my entire life. Fundamentally, as far as what made me help reveal my character or help solidify that character, my work habits, ethic. I came in soft. I came in to an extent like not able to take accountability for my own actions, and I left an entirely different human, I think. So I wouldn't, if I'd gone to USC, they may have perpetuated that based on the way they do things. I don't know.
Who knows? Yeah. You know? Well, cool. You said something that I think is exactly where we should go next. So college football shaped you and was fundamentally important season of life for you. You're now a business owner, right?
Yeah.
We could fast forward and just jump into, hey, now you're in real estate, but I'd love to kind of understand how it translated from, okay, I'm done with college football now. It's 2016. I'm guessing you graduated with some sort of a degree, and how did you make the decision to get to where you are today?
Yeah, there's a little bit of an interlude before the real estate piece, but October of 2016, so I was about 2 months away from graduating. I graduated with a degree in organizational and relational communication. So communication with a slight emphasis in business is the best way to describe it, because that's what a lot of the kind of extra elective classes were, or required classes were to get that designation. But it was October of 2016, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I knew that I was done with football. Not that I wouldn't have had opportunities. That was actually the first year in heading into 2017 of what they call the NFL IPP, the International Player Pathway Program. So essentially, it still exists now. The NFL actually will they select a certain amount of international guys that have international passports or citizens of other countries, and they basically count as like non-rostered players. So even if I had completely sucked, I would have had a couple of years on the IPP potentially.
Is that like practice squad most likely?
Yeah, but for the most part, yeah. But that said, even if that was an opportunity, what people don't understand about football at that level, like college football heading to the NFL, especially nowadays, because college football is basically professional. Everyone can say it's amateur. It's not. It's been professional for decades. When you play sports to that level, it's very different to playing in high school or club or for fun. And I was burned out. I got to the end, and I was still wanting to enjoy those last few months, but I realized this isn't something I can do every day. I can't do this as a job. And that's actually kind of a hard reconciliation, I think, for a lot of people, because when you grow up your whole life wanting to play professional sports or just being a sportsman or sportswoman, there's a fundamental change in your identity at that point. And I wasn't 100% sure, but I knew I didn't want to play football. I had 4 epidural procedures my senior year. I had a L4, L5 herniation. I realized like at 23, like I don't want to be doing this. I just don't want to do it. It's not it. And I didn't know what I was going to do, but I was getting this degree, and I had a senior capstone like thesis on luxury sales, because I'd always been interested in sales. I was always kind of like entrepreneurial minded, but didn't necessarily know the outlet to do that. And I went and interviewed a few car salesmen at different luxury dealerships in town. I ended up interviewing a guy called Bob Hampton, who's at Acura, with Lyle Pearson, and just to get some quotes for my paper. And interviewed Bob, and Bob asked me, "Hey, what are you doing after football?" And this is 2 months away from graduating. I was like, I honestly don't have a clue. And also, there's a heightened sense of urgency, believe it or not, as an international student, because my visa is only good for being a student, and then I get 1 year of optional like work essentially. And I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. And Bob was like, "You should look at sales in general." I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I'll kind of figure it out." Looking back, it's wild because I had like 60 days. I had no clue what I was going to do. But anyway, Bob took a liking to me, and I knew Bob through a classmate. He was actually the father of one of my classmates in another class. And I get a call from the GM of the dealership like a week later saying, "Hey, would you come and interview for this job we have?" And I'm like, "Sure, I guess." So I interviewed for their Mercedes and Porsche jobs in sales. So as a Porsche brand ambassador and a Mercedes sales rep. And went and interviewed this is my first ever real job interview essentially. And I'd always been interested in cars. So it kind of was I think kind of a natural fit, being interested in cars and being somewhat entrepreneur sales minded. And they offered me the job, and I was like, "Well, great, this is great." But I still got I got a few 4 or 5 more games to play. And I'm not graduated yet. And they said, "Oh, it's okay, we'll hold it for you in January. So if you come back in January, you'll be good." So I decided that's what I was going to do. I took 1 week off of football. We played Baylor in the Cactus Bowl. Took 1 week off, had my wisdom teeth taken out because they had impacted like before the season. But if you get surgery, especially as you get older, it's a little bit rougher recovery. So I knew I would be out for at least a week, and I wasn't willing to miss a game. So I kind of just,
put that off. Yeah,
put it off, got it done as soon as I could. Took a week off and went straight to work. So I went straight to the dealership. So started work January of 2017. And for anyone that remembers that lived in Boise, that was that Snowmageddon year. And it was just
that's the year I moved here.
Yeah, it was insane.
It was.
Absolutely insane.
We moved here January of 17. So same milestone for us.
Yeah, I was sat in a dealership wearing a suit and tie, questioning what the hell I'd done with my life. I'd gone from being this athlete on a field to being stuck behind a desk, and there's snow and I can't see the ground and there's no one coming to buy cars.
That's right.
So yeah, I had a little bit of an identity crisis in that couple of weeks, because no one was coming to a dealership to buy cars when they couldn't even leave their house. Yeah. So it's kind of a isolating, month essentially of time there. And
a lot of people probably think we live in a snowy place, but we really don't.
No, we get snow, but not like that. That was an anomaly. I think that was like 100-year snow basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, I am stuck at this dealership, thinking I'm a car salesman. I've gone from playing, for a top 25 college football team to being a car salesman that doesn't sell cars.
Life hits you fast.
Yeah, it hits you pretty quick. And I was like, oh, hang on a second. But at least I went to work. I mean, I'm one of those people that if I have to keep moving, I don't want to sit down for too long. So I took a week and went to work. So that was good. But yeah, that first month or so was kind of tough because nothing was selling. And then all of a sudden, the sun comes out, started getting some momentum. I actually finished, I think it was second in the dealership out of all the different dealerships. There was like 22 salespeople in sales that year. So all right, I got a chance, and I made good money out of college. And all right, this is something I could probably make a run at. So I did really well there. Came into the second year, I was on track to finish towards the top again too. And I asked to meet with the GM, and I was like, "Hey, look, what's my career trajectory? I want to kind of figure out what this could look like." And he explained the different paths, and essentially it would have been like a 20+ year haul to get toward the top, not even necessarily at the top, so to speak. And I was just like, at 24 at the time, almost 25, I was like, I don't want to wait until I'm in my like late 40s, maybe early 50s to do something of notoriety. So that was when I chose real estate, because one of the things that was recurring was a lot of the people that came in, especially on the Porsche side, a lot of those people invested in or were involved in real estate. I met doctors, attorneys, real estate investors, real estate agents, developers, all types of very different affluent people. But even the doctors and attorneys were involved in real estate to an extent. So it's kind of like a natural kind of pull. And yeah, July of 2018, I just quit the dealership cold turkey. I was like, I'm going to get my real estate license. I didn't even have my real estate license before I quit. I just knew that I didn't want to stick around selling cars for 7 years before I got any chance to even be like a manager.
Yeah.
So yeah, I chose real estate. That was the path.
What do you think led you to that conclusion? Because that's a pretty mature and a pretty brave, bold thing to do. What were you, 25 years old at the time?
25, yeah.
To say, hey, what's the runway look like for me in this career path to be successful or to be as successful as you wanted to be? I recall myself at 23, 24, 25. It took until I was probably 30 before I was ambitious enough where I realized like, hey, the job that I was working in had a ceiling that I kept bumping up against, right? And it was like, and then it was, I came to the same conclusion you did, but it was years later.
Well, I think part of the reason, and it's a dangerous like lesson to learn depending on how you use it. Part of the reason is I'd already taken a massive risk at the age of 18. The age of 18, I packed up everything. I landed in America with 2 duffel bags of clothes and $600. That was how I started my journey. So when you do that, that's about as scary as it can get for any human being.
Yeah.
So when you've already gone through that and you've, I won't say mastered it, but you conquered that battle, everything else at that point is kind of like incidental. It's not as big of a deal. So I've always kind of bet on myself. So although it is, it was a big move to make. I mean, it was a 6-figure job out of college, especially back in 2017. People would, bite someone's hand off to that opportunity. But I just realized that it was a risk I was willing to take because I'd already taken a massive risk. I'm definitely I won't say I'm less of a risk taker now. I'm definitely a lot more astute at how I analyze risk taking, because you shouldn't need to take as big a risk necessarily as you get more progression in your career. But back then I was like, I'm 25. I don't have kids. I'd only just gotten married. I might as well, have a gamble, and I did. So yeah, I think when the age of 18, when you take the biggest risk of them all essentially and move to another country, don't know anyone, and go and play for at the time, I think we were Boise State ranked number 4, number 5 in the country. You go and play for one of the best football teams of all time.
No, it's cool.
It's easy almost.
I mean, getting to the place where you realized it was a risk to take is one thing, but even just being in a place where you realized, hey, just to have the maturity to look at a runway and to look at what a ceiling was going to be, I think is interesting and probably very unique is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah. I think, I just think I've always been quite an introspective person. And by that, I mean, I've always just been someone that kind of like thinks big picture. Yeah. Like I don't really live, like I talk about trying to enjoy the moment more, right? Earlier on. I do try and enjoy the moment, but I also don't want to live in this kind of bubble that the moment is the only moment you have, and this is as big as life gets. I've always had a big picture for my own life and for my own ability to, help others and do big things. So I think it's just innately in me to always be thinking forward. Like there's that saying that there's a reason the windshield is bigger than the rearview mirror. Yeah, and that's always kind of how I've lived my life. So yeah, I wish I could tell you the reason why, but I think I've always been that way of just thinking bigger picture. Like sometimes people think I'm crazy with some of the ideas I think, but I've always been a why not rather than a why. Yeah.
Well, I think it's cool to be built that way. And then I think it's cool that you actually did something with it as well. I think most 25-year-olds, if they had a 6-figure income, they're probably just going to be, oh, this is good. I'm living the good life, right? Because they don't have the long-term vision for what could be. Yeah. So I think it's great. So you also had unique exposure to affluent people, as you mentioned, and a lot of the common denominator of those people was real estate. And so again, it was maybe shown to you, but you still had the ability to be able to notice it. And then obviously this is where the story goes. So let's keep going.
Yeah. So July 2018, I quit the dealership and didn't have my license. Went and got licensed. So it took about a month, I think it was almost, between you getting the fingerprints done that you have to get done, going to class, taking the test. So I just poured into that. And I had some savings, but I wasn't the most responsible. I wouldn't say I was irresponsible, but I also wasn't the most responsible with my money as I was making it. So I had about 6 months of runway.
Which again, probably better than most, right? At 25, most people are probably spending what they make. Yeah. A little bit of credit card debt, driving a nice car, probably renting an apartment. And it's like, okay, what do you have to show for it?
Exactly. Yeah. So I had a little bit of a cushion, but it wasn't enough.
And you were going to move into an industry that is 100% commission.
Yeah, 100% commission, and there's not really a playbook. Well, there are playbooks, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be successful. And a lot of the time, it means you have to invest in that particular play you're trying to run, so to speak. Right. So I get in in July 2018, get licensed, and join a brokerage, and I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be easy, right? Because I'd gotten success at the dealership. The sales cycle was quite quick. Sometimes you get internet leads or people that you meet and you have to put orders in for vehicles, especially like Porsches. Sure. It could take months. But a lot of the time, more often than not, you meet someone same day or same week and they're in and out, and that's a deal closed. And real estate couldn't be any different. Like, it's, at best, if you meet someone that's got cash, it's maybe a 2-week, 21-day process for the buyer. With a listing, it's typically much longer, obviously. Yeah. But in my head, I was very ignorant, and I was like, I'm just going to be selling $1 million houses the same way I sold cars. Yeah, and it wasn't that way at all. So get my license in July 2018. I got 6 months of runway, and I'm thinking, okay, we'll turn a few quickly. I held an open house my very first week. I only had a license for like 4 days. I'm just like, screw it, I'll just go hold an open house. I've got no clue what I'm doing. And just held open houses for a long time and got no traction at all. I actually didn't sell anything for 9 months. So I went from July 2018 to March of 2019 before I actually closed my first deal.
Which probably isn't that abnormal, right? If we look at most new agents.
No, it's relatively normal.
Yeah.
It's relatively normal to go a long period of time, but I didn't have the reserves to go a long period of time.
Correct.
So things got a little bit dicey quite quickly. So I actually ended up, I started driving Uber in like September or October of 2018 and doing like DoorDash or Uber Eats and stuff just to make ends meet. My wife was in law school at the time, and we got to like December of 2018 and I had like $17. That's literally it, $17.
That's tough.
A little bit of credit card debt, and she's in school, not even working.
You're probably ready to hang it up. Like, I got to make some money.
Yeah. So actually, I think it was the first or second week of January, I told myself, all right, if you can't get something put together, you have to either go back to the dealership or get a real job, right?
Yeah.
So I made that kind of promise to myself. And then a few days before I was going to go and speak to my broker and say, hey, look, I'm going to kind of go back because I can't sustain anymore. The very first person that came through my very first open house called me up and they remembered me because I'd have written them a handwritten card with like a Starbucks gift card.
So this would have been back in July of 18.
Yeah. Back in July, they kept the handwritten note. And they called me up and asked me
like,
if
it's an Elliot Hoyte autograph. I want to keep this.
No, I don't know, dude. I think I'm more well known now than I was back then. And yeah, they called me up and they asked me if I'd help them out because they liked me and like I'd stayed in contact. So we ended up listing their house and getting them under contract on the purchase. That closed in March. That was enough to kind of clear the debt and pay for a few bills.
Yeah.
And then it kind of just snowballed from there. It was really weird. From March to December of that year, I sold 27 homes.
Which is really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, 27 is a lot.
Really, really good in any market.
And that market wasn't that good. 2019 market wasn't, I wouldn't say it was bad by any means, but it wasn't like the COVID markets. It was a normal-ish market. 27 homes is a lot for truly, that's a great year for anyone.
Anyone in any market.
Yeah, let alone your first year. So yeah, I was like, all right, I think I got something here. I got a chance, and obviously made some good money and more money than I'd ever seen ever.
Correct.
And the average purchase price back then was much lower, but still, it was a significant amount of money.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, I think I might have a chance here. So I actually ended up hiring my first assistant in like August of that year because I think I had 9 closings in the month of August, and I was like, oh, that's a lot. Yeah, this isn't sustainable on my own, so I had to kind of get some help. And then the next year, over doubled the production again. I went from like 9 million to 23 million, and I actually decided to build a team out from that point because I can't do this. And 23 million is not a lot. Well, don't get me wrong, 23 million is a lot for most. Nowadays it's not. Back in the day it was a decent amount because of the purchase price, obviously.
And just to give context, it's funny. My story overlaps with yours really similarly. I got into mortgage June of 2018.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Right. I had reserves though. I came from a career job, and so a little bit different story. That I can get down to $17.
Yeah.
But I had the first, all of 2018 was really just being a professional friend.
Yeah.
Kind of fun and games. I knew I wasn't going to make any money, and we had some reserves, so it was okay. But we kind of rounded the corner in 2019, and it was my wife and I were having the same conversations. It's like, all right, we're looking at our bank accounts, we're looking at the calendar, and it's like, we've spent a lot of money here. This has to materialize, or I was gonna have to go back to Microsoft, which is where I came from. But sure enough, that market I think was a pretty good market, and turns out I believe God's grace on me and anybody that got into the business at that time. COVID was horrible, except for those of us that were relatively new to real estate.
Yeah.
That was incredible. I mean, to go a year and a half worth of experience and then all of a sudden rates plummet.
Ride the wave.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you and just like me and anybody else would have had 2 incredible years in 2020 and 2021 to go almost just really make hay and get tons and tons of experience, right?
Yeah. It was 2020, 21. I kind of built my small team out, and we just printed. It was just it was insane. It wasn't.
I mean, you couldn't have picked a better time to get into the market.
No,
honestly.
not from a money making perspective. Absolutely not. In a perspective of setting realistic expectations of what business should look like. Absolutely not.
Right. That was. Yeah. We all thought, oh, that's going to be the new norm.
Yeah, I think a lot of people did, and I was already told the cautions from the old heads that have been a long time. Like, this is not normal, and you kind of just you ride the wave, but understand this isn't normal.
Exactly.
And I was one of the best agents even back then. So I was getting advice from people that I was making more money than. So in my head, I'm kind of like, well, I get you saying that, but I'm kind of doing more than you. And obviously, 2022 rates started to climb and things changed pretty quickly,
Yeah, that was the beginning of a lot of people getting out of the industry, right? Agents that, I mean, it's crazy. If you don't build a business the right way, we're all affected by the headwinds and tailwinds of the market, right? We have to be. When the market's good, it's good, right? When the market's hard, it's hard, right? Yeah. And those that are built for the long haul that can figure out a way to navigate their boat to the deeper waters of the stream, right? Even when the market's tough, those are the ones that are going to survive. But yeah, I mean, it started to shift in 22 for sure. And people started leaving.
Yeah, they did. And that was, of course, when I was like, let's start my own brokerage, right?
That's when you did?
Yeah. So December of 21 was like, I think that was kind of coming towards the tail end of interest rates. We were starting to like see, all right, there might be some signs here that things are going to go up. It wasn't until I think the midpoint of 22 where it really, really changed. But I got my broker's license in December of 21, and I took my team from the brokerage we were at, and we became our own brokerage. Not to become a traditional brokerage with other agents, but just so I had complete vertical control of my team. We had 4 of us at the time, and I was like, let's just stay very small. So I got my broker's license and opened up shop like officially in January of 2022. We've always actually done well. We've never actually had a bad year, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
We did well in 2022, but there was that kind of faucet that kind of shut off across the market. I think it was like April of 22, maybe May of 2022, when we all of a sudden started seeing 7% interest rates. I think if I remember correctly.
Not quite that bad. It was October of 23 that rates peaked at like 8%.
Got it. Oh, 8, yeah.
Yeah. So if you look back, 22 was a pretty decent year still for a lot of people. It was the beginning of the shift for sure. 23 was a really hard year.
Yeah, 22
for people.
Yeah, 22 was pretty solid. It was if I remember correctly, it was coming to the winter of 2022. Things slow down naturally because it's a little bit seasonal in the market. And it was 23. Looking at a year, it was 23 where it's like, oh crap.
Yeah.
23 was like a shell shock almost.
For my personal production, 23 looked a lot like 2019 for me, which was like, ooh, first year into the business, did okay. My family did fine. We replaced income. It was all good. Yeah. But it was like, woo, and then kind of back down. So
yeah. 23 was the only year in my career that was worse than the year preceding it. Not by much. It wasn't like a big drop.
That was a hard year,
but it was a drop off. And that was crazy. And candidly, the recovery has felt slow, even to this point. I don't know if it's just me, I'm speaking anecdotally. There's been some resurgence, but it's not been like a crazy drive.
Yeah.
There's this kind of like eeriness, or kind of you're waiting for things to kind of like, pick up in a way.
Yeah. I mean, we're young enough that we've never lived through what's happening right now, right? If you ask people 20 years, 30 years older than us or older than me or whatever it is, they would tell you, hey, this is the cyclical nature of the market, right? And so, but I mean, you're spot on. Rates hitting 8%. We've never seen that in our adult lives before. And house prices still generally high. Affordability horrible, right? I mean, it's been very, very slow. And then just the very public knowledge of inflation, right? And how housing generally has been probably the biggest contributor to inflation, if you think about it, right? Yeah. I mean, prices have not really come down, maybe a tiny bit. And rates coming down has helped for sure, but it's, to your point, it's been slow. Yeah. 23 sucked. 24 was okay. 25 was pretty good. We're on the mend. And we're going to date this podcast here. it feels like right now, spring of 26, I feel like it's really starting to ramp nicely.
Yeah, it's been weird. It's been the last couple of weeks. Like we've seen things that have been different that we've not seen in a while, like seeing multiple offer situations on the agent side.
Yeah.
Not quite like 2020 or 2021. But yeah, it does feel like finally maybe there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Depending on how you subjectively look at what light at the end of the tunnel means.
Yeah.
But there was a long time where it was just crawling. It felt like things were crawling, you know.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and you're trying to claw out whatever transactions you can find, right? Because you've got a livelihood, you got a business. You did something at the end of 21 that probably a lot of people would say was premature, right? You'd been in the business for part of 18, all of 19, all of 20, and 21. So pretty young in the business to decide, hey, I'm going to open my own brokerage.
Yeah. So I opened my own brokerage just simply so we had that vertical control for my team. It was never supposed to be open to anyone else. It was just supposed to be me and my team.
Yeah.
And it was that way for quite some time. I mean, all of 22, all of 23, all of 24 was just operating and growing my team. It wasn't until January of 2025 that we actually said, okay, let's see what we can do to open the doors up to have independent agents and teams licensed under us to build their brand and their kind of identity and do their business. So it was a long time we just spent perfecting our systems and figuring out what it was that we wanted. And part of the reason that I even started the brokerage wasn't just for the verticality. It was also because I realized that where I was at, I needed to go somewhere that was different. Like the way that they did things no longer aligned with my purpose. And I needed to go somewhere different, but there was nowhere else out there that really had necessarily what I wanted. So I kind of felt compelled to do my own thing.
Sure.
Like, well, I may as well just make what I want. So the brokerage we have today is very much, the DNA of it is very much what I would want as an agent. And I think that's what makes us unique too, is I'm still producing and my team still produces to a very high level. So a lot of the stuff we do, I think, is high value for other agents within our brokerage because it's coming from someone that is operating in and creating the brokerage they want for their own business, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. So you guys you've had your own brokerage now for going on, what, 4 years?
Yeah. So
4+ years?
Yeah, as a brokerage. Yeah. So it's 4 years as a brokerage, and we only just completed our first year as a brokerage that is open to people that aren't just my team.
And the original intention was not to attract other agents.
It never was. If you'd gone back probably 2 years ago, I would have said absolutely not, never in a month of Sundays. But that changed. It definitely changed.
Is that a UK thing? Never in a month of Sundays?
Yeah, that's what we say. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, because
never heard it before.
Yeah.
It's funny how we'll often start things. This podcast as well, right? This podcast started, I just wanted to give unique value to the guest. And I even told the guest, hey, if this thing ever accidentally builds an audience, cool, that'd be great. But my intention was never to do that. And really quickly, it's like, well, actually, everything's better with an audience, right? So now my goal is not just to provide unique value to the guest. I actually want to create an audience, and I want this to be able to get bigger because it's better for the guest and it's better for me. So it's kind of similar in that you built your brokerage. You didn't want it to be something that attracted other agents, but then fast forward and now you do.
Yeah. It's I think I've always tried to lead with value, right? That's kind of how I try to run my life and my business. And I just realized that we have a lot to offer in building a community and building resources around the right people and the right agents. And unfortunately, the barrier to entry in our industry is incredibly low. And there's a lot of, I'd say the majority of people that are in our industry aren't that good. It's just the truth.
Yeah.
And I've really wanted to create a community and an environment around professionals who take it seriously and are good human beings and want to continue to build that community and build those resources together. That's really what it's been about. It's to try and, there are some bad actors out there or people that maybe don't take it seriously, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't surround ourselves with the good ones. That's what we're really attracting essentially. Yeah.
You've taken some really good calculated risks over the years. Who would you give credit to in your life for helping?
I've never been asked that. No, I've never been asked that. I think this is going to sound almost backhanded, and I'm sure they're listening because my parents listen to everything. It doesn't matter what I do. Here's a backstory to this. Whenever I tell my story about how I landed in America with 2 bags of clothes and $600, my mother gets very annoyed. She's like, "Well, you make it sound like we abandoned you." I said, that's not how it was, but that's the truth. That's what I showed up with. So I'm sure she's going to text me whenever she's listening to this back.
Yeah.
I'd have to say my parents, and not because they're risk takers. Actually, the opposite. I love my parents to death, and they gave me a great background, and they gave me the morals that made me who I am. But I know that there were sacrifices they both made for each other, and there's sacrifices they made within their own lives. And there's sacrifices that my mum, she worked so my dad could fulfill his dream of playing football, right? And there's things that maybe she would have wanted to have done that she didn't get a chance to do. So I look at that, and that's a big influence for me, because I'm like, well, my mother maybe didn't get to do the things that she wanted to do, so why should I not go out there and try and take that risk and go and do that thing? And also on the same side with my dad did take the risk himself to go and play football, and it worked out for him. So I kind of had a little bit of inspiration there, like, why not take the risk? So I say probably my parents are the biggest influence on me, and they're not massive risk takers themselves, but I think the risks they did take were enough to show me it's okay to go and be the next generation to take an even bigger risk. But yeah, I've never been asked until today who inspired that risk taking. I think it's innate in me that I am a risk taker, but I think my parents are probably the biggest influence.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Love that. All right. So you've got THG, right?
Yeah.
Which used to be the Hoyte Group. And then I think you guys rebranded because you didn't want to necessarily have it be your last name. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we started off as the Hoyte Group. Yeah. That's what we were always called when
We're just going to go to TS.
Yeah.
TSG.
You're good, dude. I don't judge. That's your business, your decision. We were called the Hoyte Group originally, but I didn't want my name in it because I wanted to build something that was outside of me. It wasn't just me. I think it's important to build affinity around a brand versus a human being necessarily. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't have a CEO or a leader. Of course you should. But I think the brand, for me personally, I wanted to separate myself from that to an extent. So that's why it's called THG. I honestly couldn't think of anything else to call it. I'm like, well, this works. THG works.
It's great.
The rule of threes, right? So that was why I just didn't want to be. We all have an ego, but we all have varying degrees of what that ego is. I'd say my ego is quite small in that I don't need my name to be in it. It doesn't fulfill me that way. I like to kind of galvanize people around a vision or an idea. So that's why I decided to take my name out of it. I just don't need that gratification. There's a lot of people in the industry that are that way, and that's okay if that's their prerogative, but it didn't make sense to me.
Cool. One of the other things that you do really, really well is Instagram. I'm sure you know that. You've got a nice following, and you've got a really unique niche, right? You've almost built like a news channel on Instagram. Yeah. And was that your intention?
No, I don't really know. I can't say I don't know. I can't say I don't know what the intention was. What I can say, I didn't think it becomes as big as it has become. That's what I can say. So, like I've mentioned, I always try and lead with value. And most real estate agents and most real estate like pages and social media, they don't have a lot of value. They just don't. And I was like, okay, how can I bring value and make it real estate adjacent? Because most agents create real estate content that's at the bottom of the funnel, just talking about these are things you need to know before you buy and sell, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
That's not overly valuable for a lot of people unless they're in a transaction. And candidly, if they're in a transaction, they're not working with you anyway. So if they got to that point, Yeah.
Someone once told me that for my content as a mortgage broker, I should be really thoughtful about who my audience is, because if it's for consumers, by the time they see it, they're already in a transaction with another agent and another lender. So it's like, it's too late, right? Yeah. So be thoughtful about who your audience is when you're making your content. Yeah.
You have to know who you have to know who your audience is. You can't just create content, in my opinion. You have to know who the audience is before you create the content.
Yeah.
So what we decided to do was go more top of funnel and think about, okay, well, what affects people in our market day to day? And that's what most of the content that we create is around. It's about things that impact people that are in the Treasure Valley area that's adjacent to real estate.
Yeah.
So I would say 80% of what we talk about, there's a real estate component to it. There truly is a real estate component to it. But we also look at some of the current events and how that relates to real estate, whether it's growth, whether it is new things being developed, things that impact people day to day. So when they do think about real estate, they do think about myself, they do think about our team, they do think about our brokerage when they're agents looking at joining brokerages. We had an agent onboarded just yesterday. The reason she onboarded was because she said, my brokerage aren't giving me any value. I share your videos with my own clients. So I was like, why don't I just come to your brokerage? So it's great because it serves agents, it serves the general public, it serves clients that I might want to work with, and developers, builders. We have developments we have developers that decided to work with us because of the content we create. So it's just kind of this value driven piece. And we just really try and focus on what brings value. I really don't try and push agendas or anything. I try and stay as neutral as possible in the things that we share and just try and share things that bring value to people, essentially. And now it's insane. I mean, I literally can't go anywhere without getting recognized. So I get anywhere from 600,000 to just over 1 million views every 30 days, depending on how much content we're putting out. But the crazy thing is, over 60% of it is in Ada and Canyon County alone. So the amount of eyeballs is insane.
Yeah.
There's very few people that ever get that level of hyper local pinpointed following. And I'm a unique, like, especially for Boise, there's not very many ethnic minorities in Boise anyway, let alone ones that are English. So I do stand out like a sore thumb. As it is, let alone with the social media side. So I can't go anywhere without getting recognized.
And your accent at home is not an accent, right?
It's just me. Like, I'm very unremarkable in England.
Correct, sure. But here it's very unique sounding, right? And you've got a unique look about you, and people recognize you probably from playing football. That doesn't hurt, right? Yeah. So it's been a good mix for sure.
Yeah, it's been weird. I mean, like, I think I have a level of authority because we do.
It's a good word.
I spend a lot of time researching. Like, the content that is shared is not just put together on a whim. Like, we do spend a lot of time outside of the day-to-day real estate transactions or working with agents and that stuff to make sure we do deliver good content. So I do know what I'm talking about when it comes to development and what's new to the Valley. And I think that having that authority and having that, people knowing that we know what we're talking about and what we're doing is a currency that almost doesn't have a monetary value, because it allows you to walk into a room and people already know who you are, and they, to an extent, know, like, and trust you. And if you're in any type of sales in general, half the battle is people knowing, liking, and trusting you. So I can walk into rooms and people already know who I am and feel somewhat comfortable because, oh yeah, I already follow you and I know you. And that ability to break that ice and build that trust is, I think, really important, personally. But it has got its downsides. Like, I use this word lightly and carefully. I think I'm locally famous now, and I don't. It's weird. I'm so normal. I'm just a regular guy. So it's really weird for people to want to stop and chat or say, hey, I recognize you. Or people will, like, stop and whisper and, like, take pictures. And it's the weirdest thing. Like, I'm just so normal. I'm just a regular guy. I'm not special. I'm just normal. So it's really weird. Yeah. Yep.
Well, your content is excellent. I'm a fan of it. You guys, it's very obvious you do a lot of research and a lot of preparation. What I would also say that might be encouraging to anybody out there that aspires to create content, your content is almost the same. Mm-hmm. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. Not the same words and not the same story, but you're not, hey, I'm not shooting this one here. I'm not shooting that one there. It's face forward, side. It's just very, you guys you've found a niche that works really, really well.
It's a system.
And right, you've created a system and now you're able to execute the system, right? And you've got a lot of people that follow you. I told you once on a DM that I was in an Uber on the way to the airport.
Yeah.
And somebody was telling me about something real estate development wise. And he's like, yeah, I watched this guy on Instagram, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, is it Elliot Hoyte? And he's like, oh yeah, it is actually. Just kind of funny, small world. You know what I mean? It's like I'm talking to an Uber driver about whatever and your name comes up. So
yeah, I it's so weird. People call me a content creator. Like, I never thought. Yeah. If I go back years ago, it's kind of cringy. Like, content creation is kind of cringy in a way. And now I guess I'm a content creator or influencer. It's just weird. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're also sharing objective, helpful information. Some ways I almost kind of think you like an anchorman a little bit, right? Because you're sharing the news a little bit, but definitely real estate adjacent news.
I try and stay as objective as possible, and most of it is quite objective. And we're not held to the same journalistic standards real journalists are, because I'm creating it for fun. It's just value. Correct. It's not. This isn't. Right. I'm not regulated by the FCC or anything. We're just creating content, for our community. But it's crazy how you can give two objective points of view on a subject, but people only listen to what they want to listen to. Mm-hmm. And then they assume because you've shared a point of view, oh, you think this, you think that. And it's like, if you go back and listen to it, I never want to share my opinion. You're just latching on to what you want to hear in your little echo chamber there. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The other interesting thing is with social media that is a bit of a facade, and I've said this on other episodes as well, is people think they know you and they think they like you. Yeah. And that's a really good place to start from a business standpoint. Yeah. But they don't really know you, and they don't know if they really like you.
No, and that's the thing. What I will say is, what you see is what you get for the most part. My stories, like my Instagram stories, are a little bit more candid than the produced stuff for like the reels, obviously.
Yeah.
So if anyone ever watches my stories, like I share a lot more there. But yeah, I definitely have certain opinions. I have strong opinions on stuff. I just don't share them on socials because I want to get in a room with you to understand who you are character-wise. I want you to understand my character from a place of understanding, not because you judge me off of social media. Like I don't like to, I don't want people to have a preconceived idea of me because I shared an opinion that I wasn't able to properly like back up. So I'd rather get in a room with you, you know, like and trust me because you've seen stuff. Then I can start sharing some opinions, have some conversations, and we'll be able to do it from a place of understanding, you know, wanting to understand versus just being emotionally charged like social media is a lot of the time, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, we're at the hour mark. This could go on for a lot longer, but I think it's probably a really good place to wrap it up. So I'm super grateful that you shared story with us. Obviously, this episode, just like any other content we create, we hope that people are going to watch it and then they are going to want to know you more. They think they might know you, right? Hey, I kind of like him. I know him. Maybe I could trust him. So ideally, this helps create for you. New business would be our goal. What's the best way for either an agent that might be interested in your brokerage or a consumer if they're interested in having your team help them from a sell or a buy situation? What's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so Instagram's the best way.
Yeah.
It truly is. Like I check the DMs on a regular basis. So Instagram's the best way. If you're an agent, you're interested and want to know more, can definitely hook that up. And then buyers and sellers. Again, people think it's a conflict because you own a brokerage and you have agents too. There's enough business for everyone. But buyers and sellers, same thing, Instagram. Just hit me up on Instagram. That's where most of the business seems to start. So Instagram's the best way. So it's Elliot, ELLIOT _ Hoyte, HOYTE.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing your story with me. Really appreciate you giving your time.
Yeah, thank you.
And this is great.
Thank you, Gavin. Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you.